Hello and welcome. My name is Dallas with Atomic Mass Games, and today we're going to cover the fundamental tools and techniques used to paint your miniatures for the tabletop. For this project, you'll need the following tools and materials. Miniature, today we're painting Luke Skywalker. Miniature holder, primer, brushes, paint, a water cup, paper towels, a well palette, super glue or white glue, and some basing ballast. Now let's get started painting our Luke Skywalker miniature. It's important to maintain your posture and stabilization while you paint. Anchor your elbows and your wrists. Breathe, keep your diaphragm open. Holding your breath will actually have the opposite effect, contrary to popular belief. This gives you the control and stamina you need to press through those long painting sessions. The first thing we need to do to prepare painting is get our miniature based. For this, we're going to use a little bit of white glue with maybe a little touch of water on the brush. We're going to paint this on the base. Careful to not touch his feet. Just give a nice little coat. Work your way around. Once you get glue on the base where you want it, just give a little dip into your material of choice. And I like to give a little flick. Get rid of the excess. A little wipe around the rim of the base to make it tidy. And if you get any extras, just give it a little brush away with an old brush. Now we're ready to prime and paint. Before you paint, you need to prime your miniature. Primer is what helps paint stick to the mini, just like priming the walls before painting your home. Primer can be applied using a spray can or an airbrush, or even a brush-on type primer. For painting the miniature, I like to attach it to some sort of base or handle, something that lets me control and stabilize the miniature. You don't need anything fancy. You can use a spray can lid, a pill bottle, sports drink lid, cork, or an old wooden dowel. Just use some double-sided tape or blue tack and attach your miniature's base to the holder. And you're ready to go. Now it's time to finally start painting. You're going to want to use miniature hobby paint, which is specifically formulated for miniature painting. Put a small drop of paint into your well palette. Remember, a little goes a long way. If needed, add a touch of water to the paint to thin it down. Don't overload the brush. This will help you maintain control when you begin to paint. I like to use a little plastic card to test and make sure that the paint feels right. If the paint feels too thick, I'll add a touch of water. If it feels too thin, it'll run all over the place and you'll need to add more paint to thicken it up. When it's just right, it should go on controlled and smooth. Base coating is the process of adding the first thin layers of paint to all the elements of the miniature. Don't worry about shading or highlights at this stage. You don't need to be perfect because painting miniatures is the fine art of correcting one's mistakes. You'll be able to finesse those details later on. You'll want to apply several thin coats instead of one heavy coat. When the paint is too thick, it fills in the recesses and diminishes the details of the sculpt. Experiment with the consistency of your paint as you work. If the paint is pooling in recesses and dripping away from the tip of the brush, it is probably too thin. If the detail is disappearing under the paint, it's probably too thick. Make sure your paint consistency is working for you, not against you. It's easy to thin the paint out more, but you can't re-thicken it without adding more paint. This is a process that requires patience. Move methodically through the process from color to color. Take your time and make sure you're turning your miniature all around in 360 degrees to spot anything you may have missed before you move on to the next step. This technique is all about getting a solid foundation to work from so you can add more advanced techniques later on. Another technique to add to your hobby arsenal is layering. Layering is painting a lighter or darker color over portions of your base color to create more depth and nuance, or to adjust the tone of the base coat. Layering is the process of building up consecutive brighter colors on the high points, or darker colors in the shadowed areas to build up that contrast. You can see these especially well in Luke's jacket, tunic, and boots. One trick for adding layers of paint to highly textured areas, such as the hair, is to use the edge of the brush to break the paint across that texture. Washing is another technique we can use to bring out the details of the miniature. By thinning out paints to a semi-transparent consistency and carefully applying it to your miniature, you allow it to run into the recesses of the sculpt, giving it much greater detail. This also helps create smooth transitions when applied over your layers. Many times you want the wash to just be spread all over an element. But in this case, like the face, I want to target specific areas to give those definition while not overblowing my layers. Notice how the paint pulls into the recesses of the sculpt, but recedes from the higher areas. This increases the shade in the shadows, giving it that definition and contrast we're looking for. For something like the boots, we can use a broader, more heavily applied wash. This allows all the layers to be blended together while giving the boots that black shiny feel that we're accustomed to. If your wash begins to pool in a place that you don't want it, just use a damp brush to wick it away. Sometimes instead of water, you can use a little glaze medium. Mix that into any paint you want to create the wash you desire. A great use for washes is your lightsabers on your miniatures. By painting the lightsaber white first and applying the color you choose for your lightsaber, it'll blend away and give you that depth of that energetic lightsaber. Once again, I'm just using a dry brush or a damp brush to pull away the wash from where I do not want it. You can control where the wash goes. Oh, that is wrong. That looks better. Our next technique is dry brushing. A dry brush can be a fun and easy way to bring out the high points of your miniature. A good dry brush is one that's a little ratty and usually wide and fluffy. You'll want one that's sized for what you're working for. Small dry brushes for miniatures, large dry brushes for terrain. To begin dry brushing, first load the dry brush with paint. Then take the brush, run it repeatedly over some paper towels until you barely see any paint streaking off. Run the fluffy brush over high points of textured areas. This will easily pick out and define all your raised edge details. A good dry brush starts very subtle, but as you build up layers, you can get the effect you're looking for. The more textured your element, the better the dry brush works. Something like chainmail or the gravel on this base is going to be an excellent place to apply your dry brush. Everything so far has been about creating smooth transitions. However, edge highlighting is about adding a crisp level of detail for the highest points on the miniature. The secret sauce is to use the edge of the brush and paint the edge of the sculpt, creating a striking bright thin line. This creates the brightest spots of your miniature and finishes off that spectrum of variation from light to dark. Now's the time to do the fine details, things like eyes and buckles and straps. Just go back and carefully work on these after you're done with the rest of the miniature. For the eyes, I like to use a good brush. You want to paint them entirely black first. It's important to not hold your breath. You want to completely keep breathing, so you can maintain your composure. Next for the eyes, we're going to use a little pale yellow, leaving a little bit of that black showing. Don't rush. Take your time. Let the brush do the work. Sometimes it's better to practice your stroke in the air first, and then slowly lower into the eye. My favorite step in painting miniatures is getting to the point where you get to paint the rim black. This sort of frames the miniature and lets you know you're done. Just when you think you're done painting all the elements of your miniature, it's time to go back and fix any mistake. Have a look around your miniature, hunting for any place the paint may have gotten where you didn't want it, and touch it up with the correct color. For instance, I got some brown on this jacket, so I can just go back with the jacket color and cover it over. Another trick for getting rid of mistakes is when they happen in the moment. If I were to get a little, say, black on the jacket, if I immediately use a second brush that's damp, I can get rid of the paint quickly. And that's it. With just a few techniques, you're well on your way to getting your entire army painted and ready to play. Thanks for watching. You can find more hobby information and videos on the Atomic Mass Games YouTube channel. And join me again for more videos in this series.